Good evening. My name is Daniel Voss, and if you are just joining us, if you are driving, if you are pulling over on the side of a highway somewhere, if you are pressing your ear uttered to a speaker because the power in your building just flickered, and this is the only signal you can find, I need you to stay calm, and I need you to stay with us. Something has happened. Something that, as of this moment, no government, no space agency, no scientific institution on this planet has been able to explain. Approximately 47 minutes ago, at what would have been mid-morning over the Pacific Ocean and the western coastlines of North and South America, a second point of light, a second sun, appeared in the sky. It did not rise. It did not drift in from the periphery. According to every report we are receiving simultaneously, it simply was not there. And then it was. This is Blackout Radio. We are not going anywhere.
And I'm Maya Ross. I want to, before we go any further into the numbers and the coordinates and the technical language, I want to just acknowledge what a lot of you are feeling right now, because I'm feeling it too. There's a kind of terror that doesn't make noise. It sits right behind your sternum and it just presses. And I know that many of you listening to us right now are standing outside your homes, or you're at windows, or you've pulled your children close and you are looking up at something that your entire life has told you should not be there. I see the messages coming in. I see them. We're going to get to them. But first, Daniel, let's establish what we actually know confirmed as of this moment.
Right. Let's be precise. We are 49 minutes into this event as I speak. The second luminous body, and we are going to call it exactly that until science gives us a better name, was first formally logged at the Global Observatory Institute's Pacific Array at what was approximately 6:42 in the morning, local Pacific time. It appeared at an angular separation of roughly 31 degrees from the primary sun, placing it, visually, from Earth's surface, slightly north and west of the sun's current position in the sky. Its apparent brightness is being measured at roughly 40 to 50% of the primary sun. That is significant. That is not a trick of light. That is not atmospheric refraction. Over a dozen independent observatories on 4 continents have now confirmed the same coordinates, the same luminosity readings, the same spectral signature. It is there. It is real. We do not know what it is.
We're getting calls and messages flooding into the Blackout radio lines right now, and I want to share a few of them because they paint a picture that raw data simply cannot. A listener who identifies herself only as Renata, calling from Sao Paulo, Brazil, writes, I was on my way to drop my daughter at school. We both looked up at the same time. She said, Mama, did God turn on a second light? And I didn't know what to say. I just held her hand. That message came in 18 minutes ago. Renata, if you're still listening, you're not alone. Tens of millions of people across the Americas, across the Pacific coast of Asia, across the Central Pacific Islands, are looking up at exactly what your daughter described. A second light. And right now, the world is trying to figure out what that means.
We want to be responsible about what we report. So let me tell you what has been officially confirmed and what has not. Confirmed. The object is visible to the naked eye across all of the Western Hemisphere, most of the Pacific Basin, and is reportedly visible on the horizon in parts of Western Europe and Northwestern Africa. Confirmed. Electromagnetic interference is being reported across a broad band. Shortwave disruptions, GPS degradation in some regions, and at least 3 communications satellites have gone briefly silent, though 2 have since come back online. Not yet confirmed. The nature of the object. The leading working hypothesis from the scientific community, as of the last 40 minutes, is an astrophysical anomaly of unknown origin. That is not evasion. That is an honest answer from people who are working as fast as they possibly can.
I want to bring in a statement that was just transmitted to us by the Global Observatory Institute. This came through approximately 6 minutes ago from Dr. Eleanor Marsh, who serves as the Institute's Director of Solar and Astrophysical Research. She recorded this brief audio statement from the observatory's facility in New Mexico. I'll read it to you directly.
At 6:42 this morning, our Pacific Array detected a point source of intense luminosity at coordinates that place it relative to our solar system at a distance we cannot yet determine precisely. Initial spectral analysis suggests a composition broadly consistent with stellar plasma. Hydrogen and helium emission lines are present. But the object's sudden appearance and its angular position relative to the primary sun are entirely inconsistent with any known astronomical body or trajectory. We are working. We want the public to know we are working. Please do not look directly at it without protective eyewear. We will update within the hour.
Dr. Marsh's statement there, transmitted to us just a few minutes ago. A few things worth pulling out of that. She confirms the spectral signature. Hydrogen, helium, stellar plasma. That is the language of a star. She is not saying it is a star. She is saying it looks like one, spectrally. The distance is unknown, which is critically important. If this object is very, very close, closer than anything of stellar mass has any business being, the implications are catastrophically different than if it is some kind of optical or gravitational phenomenon originating from a greater distance. We are 1 hour into this event. No deaths have been officially reported yet. That is where we are.
And I want to hold on to that for a moment because 1 hour ago the world was ordinary. 1 hour ago people in Los Angeles were stuck in traffic. People in Tokyo were finishing their evening meals. People in Lagos were bargaining at market stalls. And now, 1 hour later, every single one of those people is operating inside a reality that none of us were prepared for. The messages keep coming. Here's one from a man named Tobias in Nairobi, Kenya. He writes, "It's not as bright here yet. We can see it low on the horizon just before sunrise. It looks like a distant fire. My neighbors are gathered in the street. We are singing. I don't know why, but we are singing." Tobias, I think I understand why.
We are now approximately 1 hour and 12 minutes into the event. I want to give you the infrastructural picture as it currently stands, because it is beginning to shift. Power grids in parts of the western United States, specifically in portions of California and Nevada, are reporting unusual load fluctuations. The California Independent System Operator has issued a precautionary alert. This appears to be partly demand-driven. Millions of people turning on televisions, radios, charging devices simultaneously, and partly linked to electromagnetic interference affecting certain sensor and control systems in the grid. No major outages yet. Preliminary reports from Japan's National Power Authority indicate similar monitoring alerts in the Kyushu and Shikoku regions. We are watching this very carefully.
We're also receiving word, and this is coming from our network contacts in Sydney, Australia, that the reaction there is, at this moment, somewhat different from what we're seeing in the Americas. It is currently nighttime in Sydney. The second sun is below the horizon for them, which means they cannot see it directly, and yet the glow on the opposite horizon is apparently visible. A faint, unnatural warmth at the edge of the sky where there should be nothing but dark ocean. Our contact in Sydney, a woman named Priya who works in emergency broadcasting, says the phones at her station haven't stopped ringing since the reports started coming in from the Pacific. She says, and I'm quoting directly, "People here are scared of what they can't see, maybe more scared than those who can."
We're now approaching the 1.5 hour mark. I want to update you on the official government response timeline. The United States National Security Council convened an emergency session approximately 50 minutes ago. We can confirm that the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, went to an elevated monitoring posture within 20 minutes of the initial detection, though officials have stressed this is precautionary and not indicative of any military threat assessment. The European Space Agency issued a brief public acknowledgement 11 minutes ago. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory has redirected 3 of its deep space tracking instruments toward the object. The United Nations Emergency Coordination Office has activated its crisis response protocol, though as of this moment no formal emergency declaration has been issued. The world's institutions are awake. They are moving. Whether they are moving fast enough, that is a different question.
Here's something I want to address, because it's something I keep seeing in the messages. People asking about religious institutions, about what churches and mosques and temples and synagogues are saying. And I think that's worth pausing on, because it tells us something true about how human beings process the unimaginable. From what our correspondents are relaying, houses of worship across multiple continents are, as of this moment, simply open. Doors opened. In Guadalajara, Mexico, the cathedral rang its bells and people gathered. In Istanbul, mosques began the call to prayer earlier than scheduled. In Seoul, South Korea, multiple megachurches have opened their doors and their congregations are inside, not in panic, in something that looks from the outside like collective stillness, like the whole world taking a breath at the same time.
2 hours in now, and the data is beginning to arrive in volume. I want to give you the first thermal readings, because this is important. The luminosity of the second body is producing measurable heat flux increases on the Earth's surface, particularly in the regions where it is most directly overhead. Initial satellite thermal data, just now being processed by the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts, shows surface temperature anomalies of between 4 and 9 degrees Celsius above seasonal normal across a broad swath of the eastern Pacific. That is significant. That is not catastrophic at 2 hours, but trend models, if the object remains in place, project that over 8 to 12 hours, certain equatorial and subtropical regions could experience temperature extremes that would constitute a public health emergency. I want to stress, these are projections. They are not certainties, but we are going to track them.
2 hours in, and I'm getting a message from a listener named Marco, who says he's a nurse at a hospital in Miami, Florida. He writes, ER is quiet right now, but we've been told to prepare for heat-related cases. The waiting room TV is on, and every patient is staring at the same footage. Nobody is talking. One elderly man, he must be 85, he just keeps saying, I always hoped I'd see something miraculous before I died. I thought that was beautiful. I wanted someone else to know he said it. Marco, thank you for that. And thank you for being there tonight.
At 2 hours and 20 minutes, we have the first officially confirmed injury reports. The Los Angeles County Fire Department is reporting a surge of traffic accidents, 63 in the last 90 minutes, compared to a normal hour baseline of 8 to 12, attributed to drivers stopping abruptly or driving distracted while looking at the sky. 2 of those accidents resulted in serious injuries. Additionally, emergency services in Phoenix, Arizona, are responding to reports of individuals suffering eye injuries from prolonged, unprotected viewing of the second body. At this stage, no fatalities have been confirmed. But the infrastructure of emergency response is beginning to feel the weight of what is happening. Hospitals are being asked to stand by. We are watching.
I want to read something that just came across from our network partner in London, England. It's a message from a woman named Agnes, who says she is 81 years old and listening on a battery radio in her kitchen in the East End. She says, I remember the Blitz. I remember sitting in the dark under the stairs with my mother, hearing the bombs. This doesn't feel like that. This feels different. The bombs were men doing terrible things. This is something else entirely. Something that isn't angry. I'm not frightened. I'm just very, very awake, Agnes. I think a great many of us are very, very awake tonight.
We are now 2 hours and 45 minutes into the event. I want to share a development that arrived in the last several minutes. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile, one of the most powerful radio telescope systems on the planet, has published preliminary findings. They are detecting radio wave emissions from the object that are, according to their initial analysis, patterned, not random. The word they have used in their internal memo, which was leaked to several science correspondents simultaneously, is structured. They are not claiming this means intelligent origin. They are explicitly and forcefully saying that structured radio emissions can arise from natural plasma phenomena. But the word is out there now. It is in the atmosphere of this broadcast and every other one. And I think we owe it to our listeners to say it plainly. The possibility of non-natural origin has not been ruled out. It has not been affirmed. It is simply on the table.
And that right there is where the fear tends to live, doesn't it? Not in the thing we can see, but in the question of what it means, why it's here, whether here was chosen. I've been a broadcaster for 16 years, and I can tell you that the human voice, the act of speaking calmly into a microphone, is one of the most powerful tools we have in a moment like this. So I want to be that voice for you right now. We don't know what this is, but we are here. Blackout Radio is here. Daniel is here. I am here. And we will tell you everything we know, the moment we know it, without embellishment and without panic.
3 hours in, and the picture is changing. I need to give you an updated infrastructure report, and I want to do it clearly and without alarm, but also without softening what is happening. The California grid, we reported on stress indicators earlier, has now experienced its first rolling blackout. The outage began approximately 14 minutes ago and is affecting portions of the Los Angeles metropolitan area, the Inland Empire, and sections of San Diego County. Estimated population affected, roughly 2.1 million people. The California Independent System Operator released a statement saying this was a controlled, precautionary load shedding measure designed to protect the larger grid from cascading failure. In plainer language, they cut power to some places to keep the lights on everywhere else. This is a managed response. It is not a collapse, but it is the beginning of something, and we are going to track it hour by hour.
3 hours in, and the human stories are multiplying faster than I can read them. But I want to share this one because it stopped me. It's from a man named Dmitry, listening from Moscow, Russia. He writes, "My son is 6 years old. He woke up early because his room was brighter than usual, even through the curtains. He came to find me and asked me if today was special. I told him yes. He asked me why. I said because today the sky decided to surprise everyone. He thought about it for a while and then said, okay, and went back to sleep. I am still awake. I don't think I will sleep for a very long time. Dmitry, neither will we."
We now have a confirmed fatality report. The first one. It is coming from the Philippines, from the island of Mindanao, where the second body has been visible for approximately 2.5 hours and is currently near its highest apparent position in the sky for that region. A 58-year-old man suffered a fatal cardiac event while standing outside his home. His family has reported that he had a pre-existing heart condition. This is the first death we are attributing to the events of today. Though I want to be precise, we cannot say with certainty that the cardiac event was caused by what he witnessed versus underlying health factors. But it is the first death in the timeline of this event. 1 confirmed fatality. 4 hours in. I want you to hold that number in your mind, because over the next several hours, it is going to change.
At 4 hours in, I also want to talk about what's happening in the communities that are, right now, in direct overhead exposure. The second body appears to be, for the moment, relatively stationary in its apparent sky position. It is not tracking with the sun's arc. It is not moving the way stars move. It simply sits there. And in places like Hawaii, the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, small island nations right in the deep Pacific, the heat is becoming noticeable. Our network contact on Majuro in the Marshall Islands sent a voice message that we received about 20 minutes ago. I'll read the transcription.
It's hot. It's not. It's not catastrophic, but it's noticeably hotter than it should be. People are moving indoors. The beach is empty, which never happens here. The government has opened all the schools as emergency cooling shelters. The power is still on, for now.
4 hours and 30 minutes. Let me update the thermal data. Surface temperature anomalies in the Central Pacific are now reading between 7 and 14 degrees Celsius above seasonal baseline. That upper end, 14 degrees, is being recorded in a zone roughly centered on the equatorial Pacific, approximately where the second body is most directly overhead. This is entering the territory of dangerous heat exposure for outdoor workers, the elderly, young children, and anyone without access to cooling. The World Health Organization has issued a formal public health advisory recommending that governments in the affected zone immediately open cooling centers and restrict outdoor activity. WHO Emergency Coordinator Dr. Fatima Al-Rashid released the statement 20 minutes ago.
We are monitoring the thermal situation with deep concern. The sustained surface temperature increases being observed across the equatorial and sub-equatorial Pacific are unprecedented in rate and scale. We urge all affected governments to immediately activate heat emergency protocols. Hospitals should prepare for an increase in heat-related illness. We want to be clear. The effects we are seeing now are manageable with coordinated response. Our concern is what happens if this object remains in place over the next 12 to 16 hours.
I'm 5 hours in, and the emotional landscape of this broadcast is shifting. I feel it. I know our listeners feel it. In the first hour or two, there was something almost wondrous about what was happening. Something that sat alongside the fear and made it more complex. Now 5 hours in, the wonder is still there, but it is being crowded by something heavier. Real disruption, real heat. One confirmed death. Power outages in a major American city. The world's most powerful institutions still unable to tell us what this thing is. And I think the appropriate emotion at 5 hours is not panic, but it is also not calm. It is something like a very clear-eyed alertness, a decision to pay attention.
5 hours and 20 minutes. Fatalities have risen. I need to give you this update. We now have confirmed fatalities across multiple countries. In the Philippines, 4. In Indonesia, 6. Predominantly elderly residents suffering heat-related complications in rural areas without access to cooling. In Papua New Guinea, 2. In central Mexico, where temperatures in Oaxaca state have climbed to 47 degrees Celsius, that is 117 degrees Fahrenheit, we have 3 confirmed heat fatalities. In total, across all confirmed reports, we are now at 15 confirmed deaths globally attributable to the effects of this event. Additionally, injury reports are climbing sharply. The Los Angeles County Trauma System is reporting over 400 heat and accident-related emergency room visits in the last 2 hours alone. 15 dead. The number will rise.
I want to take a moment to talk about power because I think the power situation is something that's going to define the next several hours for a lot of people listening. And not just electrical power, though that matters enormously, but also the power of information, of being able to hear a voice, of knowing you're not alone in the dark. We've been getting messages from people who've lost power in LA and parts of the southwestern United States, and almost every single message says the same thing. The first thing they did when the lights went out was reach for a battery radio, for something like this. We are that something, and we take that seriously. If you have family members in an area experiencing outages, please tell them. Blackout radio is broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. We are not going anywhere.
6 hours into this event. 6 hours. Let me give you the global picture at the 6-hour mark. The United States has declared a federal emergency, effective across 6 western states: California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Hawaii, and Alaska. President Harold Steele addressed the nation from the White House press briefing room approximately 40 minutes ago. His statement was brief, and we have the full transcript.
My fellow Americans, and I address myself in spirit to all the people of the world tonight. What we are witnessing is without precedent in recorded human history. I have been in continuous communication with our nation's top scientists, military leaders, and with my counterparts in allied nations. Let me be direct. We do not yet know what this object is. We do not know how long it will remain. What I can tell you is this. The full resources of the United States government are focused on understanding this phenomenon and protecting the American people. I am authorizing the immediate deployment of the National Guard to all affected regions. I am directing FEMA to open emergency shelters across the 6 declared emergency states, and I'm calling on every American to remain calm, remain indoors where possible, and to watch out for their neighbors. We have faced the unimaginable before. We have always faced it together.
6 hours in, 31 confirmed dead. The number jumped in the last update. Fires in rural Mindanao, in the Philippines, attributed to the heat and to people leaving unattended cooking fires as they fled outdoors to look at the sky. I want to sit with the number 31 for just a moment, because each of those is a person. Each of those is someone's Dimitri, someone's Agnes, someone's daughter being held by the hand in Sao Paulo. The scale of this event is so vast, visible to billions of people, and yet the scale of suffering right now is still being measured in individual human lives, and each one matters. 31 people woke up this morning and have not lived to see the second sun set, if it sets.
7 hours in. I want to address something that is circulating widely across every communication channel still functioning, and I think it requires direct acknowledgement. There are reports, and I want to stress these are unconfirmed, of unusual animal behavior across broad regions. Mass bird disorientation being reported in Australia, in Japan, in coastal California. Cetacean strandings, whales and dolphins beaching themselves, are being reported in elevated numbers off the coasts of Chile, New Zealand, and the western coast of Ireland. The disruption to Earth's magnetic field that certain animal species use for navigation is a plausible mechanism. Scientists at the International Geomagnetic Research Consortium issued a brief statement 20 minutes ago confirming that magnetometer readings globally are showing significant and continuing perturbations. That is their language. We do not know the full scope of what this means for ecosystems, but it is happening. It is real.
7.5 hours in. And I want to share, alongside all the darkness of these updates, something that is also real. Our contact at a community center in Compton, in Los Angeles, one of the areas that lost power over 3 hours ago, sends this message. We've got about 200 people here right now, families, elderly neighbors, some people who were just passing by. We're running on generator power. Someone brought tamales. Someone else brought a guitar. The kids are asleep on cots. The adults are talking quietly. Nobody's yelling. Nobody's fighting. It's the gentlest I've ever seen this neighborhood. Like we all remembered something about each other. That is also what's happening tonight. That is also real. 8 hours and 20 minutes. We just received an audio statement from the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Sarah Dunmore addressed the British public from Downing Street. It's short. I'll read it.
9 hours in. Confirmed fatalities, 112. I want to break that number down clearly. The majority, 67 deaths, are heat-related. Concentrated in the Pacific Island nations, coastal Philippines, Indonesia, and parts of Mexico and Central America. 23 deaths are traffic-related. Accidents across the western United States, South America, and Japan. 11 deaths are attributed to fires, structural fires sparked by the heat, and at least 2 large brush fires in Southern California that are currently burning actively and are classified as major incidents. 11 deaths are categorized as other, cardiac events, falls, and several incidents of crowd crush in cities where large crowds gathered in public spaces. 112 people, 9 hours in.
9 hours in, and I want to tell you about something that is happening in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Our network partner there is reporting that approximately 60,000 people have gathered in the Plaza de Mayo, the main public square in the city center. And they are not rioting. They are not panicking. They are standing together in the dark. Buenos Aires lost power 2 hours ago, lit only by candles and phone screens and the ambient glow that now seems to tint the entire horizon. They are singing. Our correspondent there, his name is Rodrigo. He's transmitting on a battery unit, and he says it is the most extraordinary thing he has ever seen. 60,000 people in the dark singing together. I don't have the words for what that means, but I wanted you to know it was happening.
Daniel Voss, 10 hours in. And I want to bring you a significant scientific update, because the picture from the research community is becoming somewhat clearer, though not in a reassuring direction. Professor James Wolfe, the director of the Oxford Center for Stellar Astrophysics, issued a statement through his university's press office approximately 30 minutes ago. I have the text here.
10 hours and 30 minutes. I've been on air for 10 and a half hours alongside Daniel, and I want to say something honest to you all. I am tired. I am frightened. And I am very, very grateful to be here, speaking, being heard. Because the alternative, the silence, would be so much worse. I keep thinking about the people who can't hear us right now. The 4+ million Americans in the dark. The families on Pacific Islands without radio access. The people who are experiencing this alone, without a voice, without information. That is what we fear most, isn't it? Not the thing in the sky. The silence around it.
11 hours in. The second body has not moved, or rather, it has moved in a way consistent with the Earth's rotation. It appears to be in a fixed position relative to the solar system rather than the planet's surface. This means that as Earth rotates, different populations are coming into direct exposure and then rotating out of it. The Americas, which were first exposed, are now beginning to rotate partly away. Europe and Africa are moving into primary exposure. The Middle East, South Asia, and Eastern Africa are approaching their maximum exposure window. And this matters enormously from a heat and UV perspective, because those regions, large parts of them, have less grid infrastructure, fewer cooling centers, higher baseline temperatures, and more people working outdoors. We are watching the heat emergency track eastward around the globe, and we are deeply concerned about what happens in the next 4 to 6 hours as that wave crests over sub-Saharan Africa and the Indian subcontinent.
11 hours and 40 minutes. Confirmed fatalities are now at 207. I'm going to keep reading you those numbers because I think it matters to say them out loud. Because each number is a person and they should be named, even if we cannot name them all. 207 people in 11 hours and rising. A message just arrived from a listener who identifies themselves only as a farmer in Karnataka, India. They write, It is almost midday here now. The sky is strange. The light is wrong, too bright, from the wrong angle. My cattle are restless and won't eat. I am keeping my family inside. My wife is reading to the children from the Ramayana. My oldest son keeps asking me what it means. I tell him, it means we should be good to each other while we can. I don't think I've ever heard anything wiser in my entire career.
12 hours. Exactly 12 hours since the object appeared. I want to give you the full global status at the halfway mark of this first day. Confirmed dead, 263. Injured or hospitalized. The number is now estimated at over 40,000 globally, though official reporting systems are under severe strain and the true number may be considerably higher. Power outages. An estimated 60 to 70 million people are now without electrical power worldwide. The highest concentration in the Philippines, Indonesia, parts of the United States, and across a wide band of equatorial Africa. Major fires, 12 large active wildfires in California, 3 in Mexico, 1 in Portugal. The global aviation system, the FAA, has grounded all non-essential flights across the continental United States. IATA is reporting that over 300 flights globally have been diverted or canceled in the last 6 hours due to GPS unreliability and electromagnetic interference. Economic markets. All major stock exchanges globally have suspended trading. The world, 12 hours in, is still standing. But it is standing differently than it was this morning.
12 hours and 20 minutes. The United Nations Secretary General Paulo Ferreira addressed an emergency session of the General Assembly, held virtually as travel has been severely disrupted, about 90 minutes ago. His statement was translated and released in 6 languages simultaneously.
What we face today is not a crisis of nations. It is not a crisis of borders or economies or military alliances. It is a crisis of our shared humanity, and it requires a response of shared humanity. I am calling on every member nation to immediately open their emergency infrastructure to their neighbors. I am calling for the immediate suspension of all trade sanctions that impede the flow of humanitarian aid. And I am calling on the scientific community of every nation, including those who are adversaries on every other issue, to share their data openly and immediately. We have never faced anything like this. We may never face anything like it again. Let us choose in this moment to be better than we have been.
13 hours in. I have an update on the scientific picture that I think is significant. In the last hour, there has been remarkable international scientific cooperation, as the Secretary General called for, and as was already underway informally. Data has been pooled from SETI Institute arrays in California, from the Square Kilometer Array precursor stations in South Africa and Australia, and from Russian space tracking radar stations that have, in a historic and unprecedented step, shared raw data with Western agencies for the first time. The conclusion that is emerging, cautiously, and with significant remaining uncertainty, is that the object appears to be approximately 22 astronomical units from Earth. That places it approximately in the region of Uranus's orbit. An object of this luminosity at that distance would have an intrinsic brightness comparable to a small stellar body. How it got there, when it arrived, why it was not detected before today. These questions remain completely, utterly unanswered.
13 and a half hours in. And I want to tell you what is happening in Cairo, Egypt right now, because it is one of the most vivid pictures I have received today. Cairo is under direct exposure. The temperature there has climbed to 52 degrees Celsius. That is 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Cairo's grid has been failing intermittently for 6 hours. The population there is over 22 million people. And our correspondent in Cairo, a young woman named Nadia, broadcasting on a hand-crank radio, is describing scenes of extraordinary community. Mosques opening their basements as shelters. Families carrying elderly neighbors through the streets in handcarts and on bicycles to reach cooling centers. Street vendors giving away water. She says, there is something happening in Cairo right now that I don't have a word for in any language I know. Something between disaster and grace. Nadia, we hear you. We're broadcasting you right now.
14 hours in. Confirmed dead. 418. This jump, from 263 at the 12-hour mark to 418 now, reflects the heat emergency wave cresting across East Africa and the Indian subcontinent, exactly as we projected. The hardest hit areas in this window, Bangladesh, where a catastrophic heat event combined with a power infrastructure failure across most of Dhaka, a city of 22 million people, has resulted in at least 70 confirmed deaths in a 2-hour window. Eastern Kenya and southern Ethiopia, where rural communities with no grid access and no cooling infrastructure have been directly exposed to peak temperatures exceeding 55 degrees Celsius. These are the communities with the least resources facing the greatest immediate danger. 418 dead, 14 hours in.
14 and a half hours. I want to step back for just a moment from the numbers, even though the numbers are vital, even though Daniel is right to keep saying them, because I want to acknowledge something about the nature of this particular event that I think is historically unique. Every catastrophe I have ever covered in my career, earthquakes, floods, pandemics, wars, had a visible enemy, a geological fault, a pathogen, a human decision. Even natural disasters come with a kind of narrative. They start, they peak, they recede. What is happening today has no narrative that any of us can see the end of. We don't know if this will last another hour or another century, and I think that uncertainty, that open-endedness, is doing something to people's sense of time that I've never encountered before. People are asking, is this just today? Is this forever? And we cannot answer that. And that is its own particular kind of grief.
15 hours in. Military updates. General Victor Hale, the Joint Chiefs of Staff spokesman, briefed a pool of journalists via satellite 1 hour ago. His statement was released publicly.
I want to be direct with the American public and with our allies. There is no military threat assessment that we can make in response to this object. Our weapon systems, our strategic doctrine, our defense posture, none of it was designed for this. What we are focused on, entirely and completely, is logistics. Moving water, moving medical supplies, moving generators, getting National Guard units to the communities that need them. The military of the United States, at this moment, is a humanitarian force. That is where we are. That is where we will remain until we understand what we're dealing with.
15 and a half hours. A message from a listener named Yuki in Osaka, Japan. I am a school teacher. Today, none of my students came to school. Of course, I sat in my empty classroom for a while anyway because I didn't know where else to go. I graded the papers I had been meaning to grade for 2 weeks. It felt important to finish them. Even if things change. I want my students to know that someone took their work seriously, even today. Yuki, you are one of the finest human beings I have ever encountered in this job, and I have never met you.
16 hours in, and something is changing. I want to be very careful about how I report this, because the data is still being processed, and I don't want to get ahead of the science. But I am going to tell you what multiple observatories are reporting right now, simultaneously. Over the last 90 minutes, since approximately the 14-and-a-half-hour mark, the luminosity readings of the second body have been changing. Multiple instruments are showing a decrease, a small but consistent and confirmed decrease in the measured brightness of the object. The current reading is approximately 2 to 3% below the peak measurement recorded at the 8-hour mark. The observatories are emphatic that this could mean many things. It could be fluctuation. It could be rotation of the object itself. Or, and I want to say this carefully, it could be the beginning of a dimming. of a fading? We do not know. But we are watching with every instrument we have.
16 hours. Oh, I felt that. I think every single person listening to us right now felt that. A possible dimming. A possible end? Something like hope, cautious and fragile, finding a crack in the wall. I want to be careful too. I don't want to give people something to hold on to that might not be there. But I have to say it. Daniel, I have to say, it would be okay to let ourselves feel the tiniest bit of something right now.
It would. I won't pretend otherwise. 16 hours and 20 minutes. Confirmed deaths, 671. Injuries confirmed hospitalized, over 90,000 globally. Power outages, now estimated at between 90 and 100 million people without electrical power. The California wildfires that began 12 hours ago have burned a combined total of over 200,000 acres and have forced the evacuation of approximately 300,000 residents across 5 counties. In Bangladesh, the government has declared a national emergency. In Kenya, the Red Cross has issued an emergency appeal for international aid. The Philippines' death toll has risen to 112, the highest national total of any single country. 671 people. Each one of them was here this morning.
17 hours in. I want to read you a cluster of messages that arrived in the last 30 minutes because I think together they tell a single story. From a man named Boris in St. Petersburg, Russia. The horizon looks gold, not like dawn, like something else. My daughter says it looks like a gift. From a woman named Amara in Accra, Ghana. We are still losing people. The hospital here is at 3 times its capacity. The nurses have not rested, but they are not stopping. Nobody is stopping. From a teenager named Finn, somewhere in rural Iceland. My grandmother keeps saying the Old Norse had a word for this kind of sky. She won't tell me what it means. She just smiles. 3 messages, 3 corners of the globe, all here, all real.
17 and a half hours. The dimming is now confirmed by 23 independent observatories. The reduction in luminosity is now measured at 7.4% from peak. This is significant enough that it can no longer be attributed to instrument variance. The object is, with high confidence, fading. Dr. Eleanor Marsh, whom we heard from at the very beginning of this broadcast, has issued an updated statement.
At 17 hours and 22 minutes since first detection, we can confirm a sustained and accelerating reduction in the luminosity of the object. The rate of change is consistent with, and I want to emphasize this is a working hypothesis, a process of rapid energy dissipation similar in mathematical character to the decay curve of certain unstable plasma phenomena. If this rate continues linearly, our models suggest the object could reach visual threshold brightness, essentially invisible to the naked eye, within 5 to 8 hours. We do not know if this will continue, but it has begun.
18 hours. Almost 18 hours since this day began for all of us. And now we can see the beginning of an end, even if we don't know its shape, and something complicated is happening in that space. Because alongside the relief, and I do feel something like relief, and I think you do too, there's also something like grief. Grief for the 671 people who didn't make it to this announcement. Grief for the landscapes burning in California, for the animals beached on shores from New Zealand to Ireland, for the people who are still in the dark right now, both literally and figuratively, who haven't heard what we just heard. The fading is good news, but we already live inside the damage.
18 and a half hours in. I want to give you the cascading picture of what happens as the object fades, because this is not an instant recovery. Think of it like this. Even if you turn off a stove, the pan stays hot. The heat anomaly that has been building in the atmosphere for 18 hours does not vanish the moment the object dims. Meteorologists at multiple national weather services are projecting that elevated surface temperatures, particularly over the equatorial Pacific and across South Asia and East Africa, will persist for another 12 to 36 hours after the object's luminosity drops. Hurricane season analogies are being used. The warming of the ocean surface that has occurred today could fuel intensified storm activity for weeks. The electromagnetic disruptions will take time to resolve. Grid repairs will take days to weeks in the most affected regions. The second sun is fading. The effects of the second sun are not.
19 hours in. Confirmed dead, 890. Nearly 900 people, 900 lives. The California fires, Governor Marcus Thorne confirmed in a briefing 20 minutes ago that 3 firefighters have died in the line of duty battling the blazes in Riverside County. He also confirmed that over 300,000 acres are now burned, and that some communities in the San Bernardino Mountains have been completely destroyed. His voice broke when he said that. You could hear it. A governor, a person in a suit who speaks from podiums, his voice broke. That is where we are, 19 hours in, and I think that's okay. I think the breaking voice is the honest voice.
19 and a half hours, a calibration update on the fading timeline. Dr. Marsh's model at the 18-hour mark projected 5 to 8 hours for the object to reach visual threshold. The rate of dimming has, in the last 90 minutes, accelerated slightly. Current revised projection, 3 to 5 hours from now, meaning the object may be visually gone, or effectively so, within the next few hours of our broadcast. The luminosity is now at 58% of peak. 58%. When it appeared, it was 50% of our sun's apparent brightness. It is now, relative to its own peak, significantly dimmer. The sky, for those of you in areas of direct exposure, should be noticeably different now than it was 6 hours ago. Less wrong. The sky should be, slowly, beginning to look a little more like the sky you know.
20 hours in. I want to tell you about something that has been building on social media and radio call-ins and text message chains over the last several hours. People are starting to ask about tomorrow. What do we do tomorrow? And I think that question, that fundamentally human, forward-leaning question, is one of the most beautiful things about us. We are 900 people shorter than we were 20 hours ago. We have fires burning. We have cities in the dark. We have millions of animals acting strangely. We have no idea what just happened or why. And people are asking, what do we do tomorrow? I don't have the answer. But I love the question. I love that we are a species that asks it.
20 hours and 40 minutes. The object's luminosity is now at 31% of its measured peak. For context, at 31% of its peak brightness, which was itself roughly 40% of the primary sun, the second body is now approximately 12% as bright as the sun. That is still visible. That is still wrong. But it is no longer the blinding second sun that greeted the Pacific this morning. It is now something more like a very bright star, a point of light that doesn't belong. Dimming. The world is watching it go.
21 hours in. And I want to share something extraordinary. Reports are coming in from Sydney, from Melbourne, from Auckland, New Zealand, that where earlier there was only a glow on the horizon, people can now see the object directly. It was below their horizon when it was brightest. By the time it rotated into view, it had already been fading for hours. And so, for them, the experience was entirely different. They saw not a blazing second sun, but something like a dying ember, a star saying goodbye. Our contact in Auckland, a man named Thomas broadcasting from his garage on a small community station, sent us an audio clip 20 minutes ago. I'll read you what he said.
I've been up all night. I couldn't not be. And now I can see it, finally. It's not bright anymore. It looks like a coal going out, like the end of a bonfire after everyone's gone home. I keep thinking I should feel cheated because I didn't get to see it at full strength, but I don't feel cheated. I feel that, I don't know, I feel like I got to be there for the goodbye, and maybe that's a better thing to witness than the arrival.
21 and a half hours. Confirmed dead, 1,014. 1,000 people. We've crossed that threshold. 1,014 confirmed deaths globally, with official caveats from health authorities in Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Kenya that their reporting infrastructure has been so severely disrupted that the true numbers in those countries are likely considerably higher. Injuries, over 150,000 confirmed hospitalizations globally. People displaced by fires or evacuations, approximately 420,000 in the United States alone, plus hundreds of thousands more across Asia and Africa. 1,014. I will keep saying those numbers because the numbers are people.
22 hours in, 2 hours from the potential close of this 24-hour window. And I say that not because the world stops at 24 hours, but because that is how we have been keeping time for this broadcast, for this story. 2 hours. The object is now, our observers report, at 14% of peak luminosity. It is still there, it is still visible, but it is fading, steadily and consistently. And across the globe, something remarkable is happening alongside the ongoing tragedy. People are emerging. In Los Angeles, where power has been restored to approximately 40% of the blacked out zones, people are coming out of their homes and their shelters and their community centers. And they are looking at each other, not just at the sky, at each other.
22 hours and 30 minutes. From the scientific community, the latest consensus statement, co-signed by researchers at 37 institutions across 19 countries and released to every major news network simultaneously, reads in part as follows.
After 22 hours of observation, we can state the following. The object, which we are formally designating Anomaly Alpha 1 in our records, appears to be in the process of rapid dissolution or departure. Its luminosity is declining at a steady and slightly accelerating rate. We now project that it will reach below the visible threshold within approximately 90 to 120 minutes. We can state with high confidence that it poses no ongoing direct hazard. We cannot, and we must be honest about this, explain any aspect of its appearance, composition, origin, or disappearance to a degree that satisfies the standard of scientific explanation. Anomaly Alpha 1 is the most profound astrophysical event in recorded human history. We do not know what it was, we do not know why it came, and we do not know why it is leaving. We know only that it was here, and now it is going.
23 hours in, 1 hour to go on our watch of this first day, and the object is at 4% of its peak luminosity. It is, for all practical purposes, almost gone. From the window of the broadcast studio here, where I have been sitting for 23 hours, I can see a faint smudge of unusual light at a point in the sky that should be dark. A bruise in the night. Fading. Our producer just put a note in front of me. Because the producers are also still here, they never left. Nobody left. And the note says the confirmed death toll as of the most recent global update received 4 minutes ago is 1,219. 1,219 people in 23 hours.
23 hours and 20 minutes. I want to give you the full picture of what remains. The California fires are still burning. The largest, in Riverside and San Bernardino counties, will likely burn for days. Power restoration in the United States is projected to take between 3 and 14 days for the most severely affected regions. In the Philippines, the rebuilding of grid infrastructure that was damaged today may take months. In Bangladesh, the heat emergency killed more people per capita than anywhere else. and the full count is expected to be significantly higher than currently reported when communications are fully restored. The International Committee of the Red Cross has mobilized its largest single-event response operation in organization history. 16 nations have pledged bilateral aid. The world is broken in places tonight, and the world is beginning to figure out how to fix them.
23 hours and 40 minutes. The object is gone. I'll let Daniel confirm the numbers, but I can tell you the smudge of light I described 20 minutes ago is no longer visible. The sky from this window looks like a sky. It looks ordinary. It looks like the kind of sky you stop noticing because it's just always there. And I have never in my life been so grateful to see something ordinary. Because ordinary is extraordinary tonight. Ordinary is everything.
23 hours and 51 minutes. The Global Observatory Institute has issued a final observational statement. Anomaly Alpha 1 has dropped below detectable luminosity threshold as of 7 minutes ago. It is gone. 23 hours and 44 minutes from first detection to complete disappearance. The second sun has left the sky. There is nothing at its last reported coordinates. Not even residual heat signature on infrared detection. As of this moment, it is as if it was never there, except for everything it left behind.
Here is what's left behind. Here is what we know. 1,219 confirmed dead, with projections from health authorities in the most affected nations suggesting the final count, once full reporting is restored, may reach between 300,000 and 350,000, accounting for reporting gaps, delayed fatalities from heat-related illness in the days ahead, and the ongoing fire casualties. 160,000 people hospitalized. 423,000 displaced in the United States alone. 12 catastrophic wildfires burning across 3 countries. 100 million people still without electrical power at this hour, with restoration timelines ranging from days to months. Ecosystems stressed in ways that scientists will be studying for years. Mass strandings, migratory disruption, atmospheric chemistry changes, and economically, the losses of this single day will take analysts months to calculate, but preliminary estimates are already in the trillions.
And here is what we don't know. We don't know what it was. We don't know where it came from. We don't know how it appeared without prior detection. We don't know how it vanished without trace. Every instrument we have, every mind we have, every watt of collective human intellectual effort directed at this question. And as of this moment, we have no answer. The world's greatest astrophysicists have convened virtual emergency sessions that will continue for weeks. Every space agency on Earth has reallocated resources toward the study of those 23 hours and 44 minutes. And the honest answer tonight is, we don't know. We may never know. And we have to live inside that uncertainty, alongside everything else.
24 hours. We have been here for 24 hours. And I want to say, before we close this broadcast and hand off to our colleagues, what I think this day was and what it wasn't. It was not the end of the world. It was not a miracle. It was not a test or a punishment or a gift. It was something that happened. Something unprecedented, terrifying, and in moments, in flashes, strangely beautiful. It was the singer in Buenos Aires and the nurse in Miami and the farmer in Karnataka. It was the school teacher in Osaka grading her papers. It was Agnes in London, very awake. It was Tobias in Nairobi singing in the street. It was 1,219 people who did not get to see it end. It was 3 firefighters in Riverside County. It was 60,000 candles in the Plaza de Mayo.
The world tonight is the same world it was yesterday, and it is not the same at all. The sun, the one we know, the one we've always had, will rise in a few hours. It will be the only sun in the sky. And that fact, which was unremarkable 24 hours ago, will feel like the most remarkable thing any of us have ever seen. There will be inquiries. There will be investigations. There will be papers written and governments reformed and emergency protocols rewritten. There will be arguments about what happened and what it means for decades to come. There will be people who say it was divine, people who say it was extraterrestrial, people who say it was a natural phenomenon we simply don't have the physics to explain yet. And none of them will be proven right or wrong for a very long time, if ever.